It's just kind of labor intensive to make that happen.
Yeah, I mean, I travel a lot.
Yeah.
With all these meetings coming up.
Thank you. Are you ready to go? Are we recording? All right. Let's go ahead and call to order the special meeting of the Public Health and Safety Committee. And Melissa, can we do the roll call?
Yes. Get my list here. Chair Morton,
Here.
Vice Chair Dominguez,
Here.
Commissioner Andrade is absent, Commissioner Sisnakis,
Here.
Commissioner Sales is absent, Commissioner Selden. Here. And Commissioner Vaughn.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. If you all join me, we'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Are there any changes to our agenda?
There are no changes to the agenda.
Excellent. Welcome, Commissioners. We're all here today to talk about the investigation by the Public Health and Safety Commission for potential fire risk and concerns as outlined by the mayor. If we could pull up the 5 points from the mayor, that would be great. If not, you can find that in your document section. Sort of clearly outlined. I became familiarized with a new word. If you don't know it, we're going to know it in the next 6 weeks. Get a chance to pronounce it correctly right now. Conflagration, right? Large wildfire. It's what we will be tasked to analyze and look at. And not seeing them, I'll just sort of, the guiding principles that were given to us by the mayor. Yep, if you have them, great. I'll just outread them. So. Yep. So we're here today. We're going to outline the guiding principles. We're going to follow these guiding principles. The chief thing we're going to do today is set an agenda and maybe even talk about some questionnaires later on. But globally, this is what we're being asked to do. Hold public meetings to gather what issues of concern to the public regarding a conflagration. Ask where major potential risks do exist. Rank the concerns by severity and likelihood, so that we may all focus on the most severe and most likely quadrant. Thank you very much. And feel free to blow that up. Ask that we complete this effort as soon as possible so that it be considered as part of the budgeting process in May and June. Work with the Encinitas Fire Department. That was amended, as well as the Sheriff's Department, as well as the Olevenheim group and any other community groups as possible, to propose mitigation measures for the most severe and most likely risk as an input to council and our full year 25-26 budget. Collaborate with the Encinitas Fire Department, Olevenheim Fire Safety Committee, I think is what. Thank you very much, to leverage their knowledge and comments. Work with agencies such as water agencies, fire agencies, the Sheriff's Department, and then ask to present the results and report to the City Council. So, any questions or comments or concerns about what's been outlined? Commissioner Vaughn?
Yeah, I just, in light of the spirit of the consulting with the OFSC, there is a fair amount of history that's relevant here over the last 4 or 5 years in Olevenheim. It includes a couple of major study reports and a series of 3 public meetings were held. The tapes are available from, videotapes are available from, and then there was another one just last Monday. And so I think one thing that would be wise for us is to leverage some of that existing history so that we're not reinventing the wheel or starting from scratch.
Excellent. It's a great idea. Happy to entertain if there's other kind of comments you've had a chance to mitigate this from anybody else, something similar? I'll just add, I did potential opportunity for us. The Scripps Oceanic Institute provides the data for a Firewatch app, and that's where I don't understand it, the chief spin it. It's a possibility we might be able to go and get a tour of what that does. So it's another little piece of data that I came across. So to that end, I'd like to propose a schedule of meetings with that in mind with the city council's request. So we have this special meeting here now. There is a set-up standard meeting on the 17th, a week from today, where we could begin to entertain public comments. And this would open up a 2-week window for us to receive public comments. So it would be bookended by an event on the 17th. We additionally, the Encinitas Community Center on Saturday the 22nd from 9 to 11, they're offering a wildlife program, wildlife preparedness program.
It's wildfire.
Thank you very much. Yep, wildfire preparedness. And then we would again meet on the 31st. We would hear public comments again. And on that meeting, we would make our results of the public comment period known to the fire chief. That would open up a 2-week window where the fire department would be able to respond to the public comments that we've gathered and presented to them. That would be anchored by another special meeting on the 14th, where we receive the responses back from the fire department. Then we would have a 2-week period where the commission could deliberate with the draft, and we'd come together for another special meeting on the 28th of April for a final report. So once again, there would be a 2-week period from the 17th through the 31st, where we'd be accepting public comments. There'd be a 2-week period where we would be meeting as a commission to generate our responses that we would prepare to the fire department. On the 14th, there'd be a special meeting again. We'd present them to the fire department, and then another special meeting on the 28th to propose our final report. Any questions about that?
Yeah, I have a question about what is public comment, because before there was a discussion of having a survey, which would be what questions and how it's distributed.
Mm-hmm.
And is that within what you call public comment, which is supposed to be done within whatever period? Because you've been saying a bunch of different dates. I wasn't sure which was for each thing. Between the 17th and the 31st of this month,
Mm-hmm.
public comment, does that mean in between that, developing a survey and getting it out?
Yes. And I think what I'm describing just in this, when I say public comment, it's a period of those 2 weeks where we would have public comment. And I'm just describing meetings that I know about. We could entertain additional meetings. And then what we actually do during those meetings to receive the public comment, if we could just move that to like the next, in short, yes. Like we need to have a discussion today about a survey, what that looks like, how the access to it, have some ideas for that. But right now, if we could just think about when we're going to meet, and if you feel like 2 weeks for that public comment works for you, if attendance at those meetings work for you, that's where I'm going.
I guess what I'm asking on the
Yeah.
public comment and that time is that it's not just public comment, it's a time like going through how, developing what questions, developing how it's going to be sent out and how it comes back in and whatever, so that's, to me, that's really important to figure that out, because it's
Yeah.
not just a random that people should comment. And, there's a whole, has to be a structure for that.
I think my thinking and working, go ahead.
Yeah, I just don't think that with the short time schedule that we have, that we're going to be able to generate a survey. I don't think the city's prepared to put together a survey and send it out to, 1,000 households or something like that. I don't think that's going to be possible because the timeline's so crunched, right? So I think the only way that we're going to accomplish, at least in this go-around, to figure out possibly what kind of decisions they'll end up making, helping them in those decisions are going to have to be through public comment in this room with the public here. We have to announce it, and that's the only way it's going to happen. I mean, is that on point?
I think it's debatable. I think whether or not we have a really talented staff and people have been thinking about it. So we'll have to see.
Well, I think that's what this form's for, right? The pink sheets, they can come and fill them out and then make public comment.
Commissioner Chastowski.
I'm kind of going backwards a little here, just responding to Dan's remark about kind of reinventing the wheel. If you went to the Leeuwenhoek meeting, it was very extensive. There were, every entity that is what we're doing here, every entity that was there and explained it. And listening to that is education for all of us. And we're not reinventing the wheel. On the state level, FEMA level, mutual aid, our surrounding partners in other cities, this stuff's already in place. I think it's really about us getting educated from the fire service, from the sheriffs and the police, and then taking what the public's information that comes at us and spinning that and putting it into this agenda. Because this stuff's in place. We're not going to change those SOPs, those MOUs, the things that are already intact. They've been developed and they're part of the big picture and the small picture. So I really think we need to get educated and listen to what they have to say, especially that meeting. Every single question that I had was answered.
It's good information.
And we could take that and have a public forum to educate the people that are asking the questions. Would be better, have these workshops like the Leeuwenhoek workshop. One of those, and I don't know where you'd have it, how big the masses would be or how little, but if it was a repeat of that, it would answer everybody's questions.
Okay. Commissioner Selden.
Yeah, I think that we're kind of going around, looking at the process. Do we want to have, because it was presented to me that this is how we were doing it, but now I guess we're kind of thinking on it, on whether we should be having a survey and then how it would go out and what it would be if there's time, if it's just emailed to everyone or it's sent through, something. If we're expecting people to come to our meetings between 4 to 6 on a certain day and that's it, that's not really getting, but maybe it doesn't matter because we're just looking at input without having that wide-ranging kind of thing, that it'd be more important maybe to get that out once we know, to let people know, not to solicit feedback. But if we are going to do that survey, then we have to do it really soon.
Yes. We're going to take the last comment here.
I just wanted to clarify that when I was talking about not reinventing the wheel, I was really responding to the mayor's call for us to facilitate public comment and really trying to make the point that there's been a public dialogue and debate, at least back in Leeuwenhoek, ongoing for the last 4 or 5 years. And there's quite a bit of documented evidence and YouTube videos of 3 prior meetings with the Fitch & Associate crew, in addition to the one last Monday. And so I'm just suggesting that we leverage the existing resources to bootstrap our public comment and understanding of the public's comments and concerns, because I agree that it's really hard to get a lot of traffic to join us here in the chambers on a Monday afternoon.
So
Chair, if I could
I have
help
some
out a little bit. I think
get
when we're
to-
talking about surveys, we definitely have the bandwidth to create a survey with what questions you guys might think appropriate. I know we've talked about kind of what the mayor is asking for, and that is to reach out to the public, find out what concerns they have with a large wildland fire, right? So I know that getting to the community and getting as much information as possible is beneficial. That's why I think he's asking to work with the Leeuwenhoek Fire Safe Council, who I know have about 1,300 people on their emails. When we create this survey, we can create a QR code and a link that we can pass out to the community so that it can be on our our website, we can use our social media to get it out. There are things we can do to help get a bigger net with the most amount of comments possible. And then when Chair Morton was talking about the 17th meeting, obviously there's public comment to that, but with our own item that day talking about the mayor's council-initiated item, you can have public comment before that, and people can come out, give their concerns here face-to-face, as well as use the QR code. And then we have the ability to go to like the March 22nd wildfire prevention workshop, where you all can go ahead and talk to people face-to-face, or get out in the community and other events that might be out there. So I think when we're trying to get that broad net to get the whole community, not just to Levenheim, but Leucadia, Cardiff, New Encinitas, Village Park area, we want to make sure that we're getting as many people as we can, and we can do that. We just need to know what you guys want us to be looking for. So we can do the work, we can create the survey and get it out there. We just need to know where the focus needs to be with what questions you might have. Does that help?
It's perfect, I think. Commissioner Dominguez?
No, I mean, I think that's great. I just had no idea you could put a survey together that quick and get the responses we needed before, the mayor's deadline. So if that's the case, I think that's awesome. Generating the questions then will be our job, right?
So
Right?
in thinking of the order, right, like having a survey prepared and ready by the meeting on the 17th would be a goal that they're ready to take on. So we'd be pretty actively working. We'd get a chance to review the questions in advance. I've looked at some questions in advance. I've talked to some people at UCSD, or they're more experienced in doing these types of things, and I've gotten some pointers on what we can do to make it as most beneficial and valuable survey that we can do. The idea in this realm is garbage in, garbage out, right? So anything we can do to really have an actionable survey that helps. So that's well. You had some concerns about the survey, so before I talk about meetings that we're going to have, does that settle you? Where do you sit now?
Well, there's two parts of it. One is how it gets out. And my concern, and I've been to so many meetings, I sometimes forget who said what when, but I think it was when I met with you guys about these things, that it made me think that the survey would not go to me, because there were discussions about a certain in-person meeting. There was discussions about next door. There was discussions about, what do you call it, housing, where there's a management company in the housing thing, whatever that goes out, where it's a community, what's the name of that? Anyways, yeah, an HOA. I live in a house, I'm not in an HOA, I'm not on next door. I wouldn't normally, just go to some meeting somewhere during the day. And so I would hope that there's various Facebook groups that are Encinitas specific of varying political bents, but if it went to all of them, then that would get a whole lot of people and telling people, encouraging to do it. So I hope that is done, because those other things wouldn't get me and wouldn't get a lot of residents that don't live in HOAs and not on next door. So I'm hoping that that if this is done, mostly online, that at least those should be ways of doing it, and then encouraged to share. So I hope that happens. And the questions on the survey, defer to, you said you had some questions then?
And
Okay.
we'll triage them.
Okay.
Right? I'm happy to tee it up with the chief, and we can.
Okay, sounds good.
It makes some sense. And I will just support you in your comments when I did talk to my friends at UCSD that are more familiar with this. What you're talking about is the obvious flaw in any survey that we do, right? And we're trying to eliminate bias in research reports like this, and the way we engage with the people is the chief way that you can sort of influence bias. And so he was, this is why a year ago when we were talking about doing surveys in this commission, the city staff said, they're very expensive to do really well, right? But we're not going to let that stop us from doing a survey, right? So I just want to support really what you're saying. It's really well-founded as we try to find the best report we can do without bias. So thank you very much. Okay. So I'd like to entertain your comfortability about the schedule that I in those meetings. And what I'll also entertain is that there's on the 17th, if not before, we'll get a list of sponsored activities that are going on between the 17th and 31st, where we can make some public comments about we would be attending as our individual groups to those meetings as well. So that's one thing I didn't mention. So we got a series of set meetings and then special meetings that are in there. So Commissioner Vaughn?
I just wanted to clarify, on the 31st, that would be an in-person meeting here.
Yes. Yes.
Where we're still taking public comment, and we're synthesizing public comment, summarizing it, and sending it back to that seems like a really tough turnaround in a single 2-hour
Well,
session.
The hope is that we've had it for 2 weeks, right? And people are going to show up, and we would obviously get comments, and if we're so moved, I would imagine by public comments. Do you have an alternative, though, rather? What would work?
I would think that if the survey portion was closed in time, that the agenda for that meeting had all of the tabulated data and crosstabs and all that kind of stuff available so that we could spend the weekend processing the data and understanding what we think the trends are coming out of that. We could at least have a productive conversation on that next Monday. And it doesn't mean that people can't make public comment at the meeting and we won't hear it, but we've at least had a time to look at the real data and do the real data analysis.
Right, right. So, and just what I think you're saying is that when we would become prepared, just close our survey date for going back something like the
Wednesday before or something, so that they can tabulate the
26th,
data.
right? We would still hold the meeting, we'd still listen to the public as they do, but just an understanding that the survey's been closed,
Quantitative part.
right, for that. Okay.
Chair Morton, did you want to hear from the public at this time?
Sure, sounds great. Thank you for prompting me.
We have one speaker, Molly.
Good afternoon. Molly Hintlian, District 2.
It's good to see you again. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. This is a big project. So I have questions and comments. So I know this is fact-finding, and you're trying to figure out the plan and get feedback from the public. My experience in the last 14 years is that of living here in Encinitas, there's times when communication has been fabulous and well executed across many touch points. So my biggest concern is communication and outreach for public feedback and participation. And I think the biggest part that I'll speak from a residential standpoint is I can't find the evacuation plan for Encinitas. There's one for Liebenhain, but there isn't one really other than go to the 5, especially if the fire is, coming from the other direction. I really feel like bringing it back to grade school days when you'd have fire drills, I really feel like a map, I'm a visual person, and some dialogue with all the different districts on what to do and where would you go. So I feel like public input broken down by districts is important, because what District 2 might do is very different what District 4 might do. So my other part is, I know there's prior studies, and I did not attend the Liebenhain event. But yeah, I'm sure there's some good information we should leverage, but I think we really need to look at Encinitas as a whole, and we have some very impacted areas that are super congested and will become more congested, Quail Gardens Drive, for an evacuation. And you only have 2 ways to go. So I think that that's an important part that should be brought up for public outreach. So if I was to step it back to get the people, residents, to participate in a workshop and help educate what it all looks like from a big map standpoint. And I encourage weekend use of the community center
different times for people who have different work schedules, because not everyone can participate in a 4 to 6 window or evening windows. Sometimes it's weekends, et cetera. And then I would encourage all kinds of communication, the city website, the city email, the city Facebook, and not rely on the groups that are participating amongst themselves. So that's it.
Thank you very much. I'm not hearing anybody. Oh, Commissioner Vaughn.
I would like to reinforce that suggestion. So I mentioned the Weber report, the 2 Fitch reports, the links to the 4 meetings, public meetings, the 3 Fitch Associates and the one just last week. Would it be possible to put on an appropriate city web page those informations, as well as the Olevenhagen wildfire evacuation plan and any other relevant evacuation plans?
Yeah, if you go to the public safety page on the website, it's all there.
Can we investigate the clarity with which it's available? Just take a look and make sure that sometimes.
Stand by, we'll bring it up on the computer.
Okay, thank you very much. So I want to round us on the, because there's still more talking to do, but are we comfortable with those dates, special meetings that we laid out? And absolutely. So we're meeting.
And then give us a moment to look at our calendars.
Absolutely. Take your time. We're not rushing here. We got time. So we're meeting here today, the 10th. Principal action item between now and the 17th will be development of a survey and anything else we kind of come up with the rest of today. And then distribution of, well, let's just stick with the meeting. So a meeting specials, a meeting on the 17th, Monday,
And the hours?
4 to 6, most likely. Yep, thank you. Keep me going. Then on Saturday, the 22nd, we'd have a staggered participation because we can't all be there at once, from 9 to 11 at the Encinitas Community Center. There's a wildfire preparedness program
It's
that's set to happen.
March 22nd.
I said 26, didn't I? Thank you. March 22nd.
So can we get a clarification on the Brown Act with regard to that? We can be there, we just can't talk about council business among ourselves, right? We can listen to the same presentations, we can interact
was-
one-on-one with
In the
members
interest
of the
of time,
public.
I was thinking about half of the commission showing up from 9 to 10 and the other half of the commission showing up from 10 to 11. But, we can, work out. Yep.
Yeah, so there could only be 3 at a time at the max. So 9 to 10 could have 3 of you, and then the 10 to 11 could have another 3. So however, some people might not get to go, or you can do 45 minutes at a time and stagger, so you can go 2, 2, 2, and 2, or however that works, but it can't be more than 3 at a time.
Yeah, if we're not talking amongst ourselves about commission business, we're just attending a public hearing. I'm not sure I understand how
I
the
think
Brown Act
because, and maybe
applies.
Pete can correct me if I'm wrong, but because you guys are there conducting committee work or commission work, you might not be able to be at the same time. But I'll let Pete take care of that one.
So I think what Josh is alluding to is what would be considered a serial meeting under the Brown Act. And so just in the interest of transparency and doing things by the book, we need to be pretty prescribed and specific about that limitation.
Can we agendize the 22nd as a special meeting?
And what's that going to accomplish?
We can all be there.
Seems pretty clever.
Pete, I'm going to defer to you on this one.
What would you define the meeting location as? I think that's the question we would have. Have you worked it out with them that it's available for that use? Because you would want to make it available to the public as well, so you're running into this parallel track here.
I think with the wildfire preparedness workshop that we already have planned with presentations being given, we would have to adjust our presentation for it, but it is available 9 to 11 because we're going to be there.
I think that would work then, yeah.
Okay, that could work.
We can look into that, yeah.
All right.
Maybe if you do look into it and we can all be there, maybe you can just send us all an email just saying we can be there, but we can't conduct, obviously we can't conduct commission business. If we can all be there, then we should get a schedule, like I'll be there from 9 to 11.
Okay.
Just for the sake of, not wasting time.
I think that's a good backup, but I think the plan going forward is we're going to make this a special meeting, and we'll be able to attend. So I think we're still trying to look at everybody's calendars.
Okay.
So we'd have a special meeting on the 31st.
I'm in Washington DC then, so I won't be here.
Okay. Then after that, there'd be a special meeting on the 14th. And then 2 weeks later, on the 28th, we deliberate and deliver the final report.
I'm likely to be out of town on the 28th.
Okay. Not seeing any difference making quorum. It's understandable if you can't make it. I mean, it's happening. You can provide comments in advance, talk to me. I know.
I can be there on those dates.
Excellent. So,
So we have your motion, and we would just need a seconder to record the action.
Second.
still a little foggy on me on when we're taking motions and when we're not taking motions. I'll take it as an action item to do my reading that I've gotten to make sure I can understand what's going on. No, it's coming though.
It's coming. Motion carries unanimously with Commissioner Andrade and Commissioner Sales absent.
Thank you very much. So now, I'll say it one more time just to globally, philosophically think it through, like the 17th through the 31st, it's public comments with the asterisks that we're going to close a survey in time before the 31st so that we can run the data and make some recommendations based on that. Between the 31st and the 14th, the fire department have a chance for a response to what we give them and come back with actions and how they'd fill in the gaps we identify and their proposed solutions to what we identify. And then from the 14th to the 28th, independently as the commission, we come up, we deliberate with the goal of meeting finally on the 28th, delivering the final report. So we're going to be, in addition of the Brown Act, one of the things that we're going to do is break up into subgroups for anything that was happening so that we can get out into the public and talk. I made some pencil notes on what I thought those would look like, pairing you up and keeping me by myself. I was thinking of having Commissioner Vaughn and Commissioner Andrade together, Commissioner Sales and Commissioner Chesnowski. Chesnauskas. And then having Commissioner Selden and Commissioner Dominguez working together. Would you
As
comments?
of right now, I have a commitment on that day, so I won't be there.
So this will be you guys working in pairs
Oh,
throughout
okay.
the entire, as
Understood.
you're working, as just like your own ad hoc, right? And so working and communicating and so that you're not alone. Yep,
Phone numbers and email.
absolutely, absolutely. It was principally made trying to align new commissioners with commissioners that have been on before. Those commissioners that have public service in public health and in fire safety and sheriff department, and it also somewhat worked out into male-female as well, just as a byproduct, as I looked at that, so. So thanks, if you guys would coordinate amongst yourselves.
We'll get, because I don't have anybody's phone number or email. I've asked for it multiple times, and been told we're not supposed to get it, so hopefully we can for this.
You should have phone
I can
numbers.
send out a list to everybody.
Sorry to hear that. Okay. Would you like to talk about the questionnaire, questions that you'd like to have?
Can we review the website?
Absolutely. It's a nice thing to do. You want to run us through the website?
Is this going to be helpful for what's on the agenda item right now? Because otherwise, we've got to try to stay on track with what's on the agenda. I'm just brought it up for here, but I don't think we should go through it because that's not what today's agendized meeting is for.
I feel like my hand just got slapped. Could you just show us how we get to it and run us through? I don't want you to show everything, but just clearly from the website. Thank you.
Let's go. So you go to the Encinitas webpage, government, public safety. And then all you have to do is scroll to the bottom of the very first page, and that's where the leave behind evacuation plan is and the presentations that went along with it.
All right, thank you.
And the Weber report and the Fitch reports?
The evacuation plan is the Fitch report. Yeah. Are you asking for the community risk assessment and the standard of coverage?
That was the second Fitch report, and then the Weber report?
Okay, we'll look at that afterwards.
I am going to take some liberty, though, because we have time, and we're going to be needing to set up with what the survey looks like. So has anybody had ideas about questions they'd like that seem relevant, that we'd like to talk about right now? We can take notes.
So if I go back to your motion that for the action you took
Yeah?
was to schedule those meetings, there was no questionnaire question. So unless you want to reopen the item and make a new motion based on survey questions, the meeting should be adjourned.
I'd like to open the meeting for the ability to have questions. Thank you for your guidance. So whatever I need to do, I'd like to do that. Thank you.
Then we'll note the secondary motion for your next action.
Basically, I'm changing the agenda, and so we need to make sure that we're following an agenda. So that's kind of what's happening there? Yep. All right.
Is it,
Cool.
just to clarify, the agenda item is working on the mayor's request that we tackle the wildfire risks and concerns, right? And a meeting schedule and a process and questions about how we get public comment, et cetera, is all part of that same agenda item, isn't it?
I think that's a question.
I think that's up to the motion maker and the seconder, how you guys choose to materialize what you're going at.
My second was to the specific issue of special meeting schedules.
Yeah.
Yeah, if we could pull the motion back, and what we'll do is we'll have that motion extended to what the survey stuff is, if that's what the chair and you agree to. That way we can put it all into one motion, you can vote on it, and then we can move forward with it that way. Does that make sense, Chair Morton?
Well, I'm
I'm amenable to that.
I just really pulling up what we've put up here, right? We have a recommended action for today. Discuss city council initiated item for Public Health and Safety Commission to investigate potential wire fracture risk and concerns in Encinitas based on recent and similar past, right? We have these guidelines that are up there. I may be dense.
I think they're just asking in the
I know.
sense of order
I'm
that we
happy
make
to, I'm
one
happy to
single
get going. I'm happy to get
motion.
on, so maybe I just need the clarification so we can do this afterwards. But, you know, in number 2, to my thinking, we're being asked to rank the concerns by severity and likelihoods, then we may focus on the most severe and most likely quadrant. We're just trying to deliberate how we're going to do that. So I'm happy to guide you in which direction you need me to do. Happy to amend the motion in the way that's been proposed. It sounds like I need to call a vote.
Yeah, that's.
Going to call a vote.
So to be clear, your motion is to withdraw the motion, the first action, and then reconsider the item.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Yes.
Or amend it.
And then Commissioner Vaughn is the second for that item, right?
Okay.
Okay.
Could have been a friendly amendment. Right?
Voting on the withdrawal of the previous vote?
Yes, to reopen the item for reconsideration.
So voting yay means it's withdrawn?
Yes.
That motion carries unanimously.
Okay. Let me get this straight. So I make a motion that we,
No motion, please, just a discussion.
well, I'm going to make the motion, then we can discuss it, right? So we know what we're discussing. Motion is to move through with a schedule of meetings as was previously discussed, with additionally spending as much time as we feel necessary or interested in talking about what that survey might look like tonight. Not hearing a second, I'm happy to just go back to a motion where we don't talk about the QR and we just go ahead and talk about keep the schedule of the meetings we have and we agenda for tonight.
Chair Morton, if I could jump in here. Definitely need a schedule. I think with the time frame that Mayor Ehlers gave us to the beginning of May there, I think having a conversation tonight about what that survey might look like so that we as staff can get that survey together for you before our next meeting so that when we do have comment and we do go out to the public and we start asking for their opinion, we have some working document that you can work off of. So if you come up with what those questions are or topics for those questions, themes, we can come and put those questions together in an organized manner for the forums and share those later.
I second the motion that we reopen this and let's get a discussion going about questions or, areas that we can start to explore. And I was going to ask you, Chief, where should we go with this? What do you think's important? What?
Let's,
We need to vote, I guess, right?
thank you.
No.
Hold that question.
No vote, just a discussion.
Go ahead and, is there anybody that wants to discuss? Go ahead, Dan.
So towards the idea of what kinds of things would we expect to hear from the public and how to gather that information for the rest of the commission and the public, I was heavily involved in a lot of the work of forming the Leaving in Fire Safe Council. I was one of the people that was consulted with for the Stein report and the Weber report. I was facilitating the first 3 of those town hall meetings. So I'm reasonably familiar with the public dialogue, at least with regards to the Alevinhain part of the wildfire evacuation issue, which is kind of central here, but obviously needs to be inclusive to other high fire regions and evacuation regions of the city. But one of the areas that people were very, very concerned with is obviously the evacuation itself. And so we've had a couple of significant fires in the region, in people's living memory that color their perceptions. And some of the things that we've heard about from those fire experiences are people having a hard time turning onto Rancho Santa Fe Road when it's wall-to-wall cars. And people with horse trailers having to go right from the town hall all the way up to Carlsbad because they couldn't make a left to get to Encinitas Boulevard, which is their closer egress. We've heard.
Can we have this around the motion that's like like we want to have a discussion about the QR code in the survey? So I'm just having a hard time. I'm happy to keep, I'm trying to have connected to that, the discussion.
So what I was trying to fill in is to save people the reading of 300-page reports and listening to 2-hour town halls, to try to summarize some of the experiences that I've had from my lived experience from the public comment, because those are the kinds of things that we're likely to hear when we open this up to the public comment. And so I'm just trying to give the commission a little flavor of that. If that's not useful to people.
No, I get it. Like if we accept this motion, these are sort of the things that we'll be discussing. Because that's where we're at right now. Like, as I understand it, we're having a motion on whether or not it's going to pass, and we're going to have a discussion about what the survey looks like.
So Chairman, I believe that the city staff would like you to have one single motion for this entire agenda item at the end of discussion as we're getting ready to adjourn, and a vote to wrap the whole thing up in a neat bun and then go home for the night.
So do you want to amend the motion that I made? So I guess my takeaway is my misstep here is that we're not going to approve this and then have a discussion. What you're saying is we need to discuss now, and then we're going to have on that. Okay. Thank you very much. Open it up. Then please, let's do what I want to do, and let's just have the discussion. Thank you.
Okay.
Any more, Dan?
Well, yeah, so some of the things that come out of that, right, with the wildfire evacuation, there's a lot of specific issues, like I just talked about. There's issues of balancing the fire department's priorities of no traffic calming interventions with the public wants fast fire response and fast evacuations in a wildfire, but they also want slow traffic and safe neighborhoods for their kids walking to school. And so there's a balance in there that sort of is something that kind of comes out of some of these kinds of things. The Alevinhain community is an old community with a lot of old houses, not built to modern fire codes. The area is very wooded, and people enjoy the natural environment, but that also comes with fuel issues and maintenance issues and clearance issues. And again, there's a balancing act that has to happen there. The neighborhood is scattered with grandfathered in roads that are often privately maintained by groups of neighbors, or not privately maintained, not maintained by groups of neighbors. And so there's issues there of having the roads to code or to suitability for good firefighting practices versus the practical challenges of getting a bunch of neighbors to voluntarily pay to make those kinds of changes or improvements, or trying to force compliance with sticks instead of carrots or whatever. So those are some of the issues. One of the things that came out of that same series of meetings was the Fitch experts in traffic for the evacuation really prioritized video cameras and electronic remote modulations of signal networks to facilitate evacuation is one of the most powerful, cost-effective things that could be done to accelerate the withdrawal.
I'm gonna,
Yeah.
people want to talk, and I am imagining a discussion where we're talking about types of questions that we're going to be putting into the questionnaire that we're giving out. I think what you're telling me, what I'm taking away is, I'm hearing a lot about, in my mind, I'm going to difficulty in getting maybe some of those people to answer our questionnaires, and like you're like describing the different areas that we're going to be needing and the people that we need to get information from that helps that thing.
Yeah,
So
there's-
is there anything that's linked specifically to specific questions that you might want to have in a questionnaire that we prepare for them? Or were you just recommending that we go to previously available information and forego the questionnaire or include the questionnaire?
I'm
How's it
trying
fit
to,
together?
honestly, I'm trying to give a level of the complexity of the issues and
Uh-huh.
what the neighbors think, because there is going to be a challenge in getting this down to ABC responses or SurveyMonkey-style questions and sliders on priorities and stuff. This is a matter of life and death to my neighbors. And we've in '97, we had a neighbor die from the wildfire. And, you know, that really, it's a small community. We know everybody. That isn't, so.
Okay. Commissioner Sinakis?
Chair, you said you discussed with the fire chief a few of the questions for the questionnaire. Can you share those with us so we could have a little bit of a reference of where we're trying to go with this conversation?
Sure.
I mean, these are in-depth things that we're talking about, and we just need to get some basic questions adhered to.
So,
The bigger picture is that, like I said, again, there are apps. This is an incident that is dynamic. You could have something in the east, you could have something in the north, you could say, the evacuation plans are set in place. The sheriffs are those people that are going to be orchestrating with fire this situation. So let's just get down to the basic things of like, what questions in a layman's term can we have the public, what do they want to hear? What do they want answers to?
right.
I mean, those are big ticket items that I think
So,
Dan's talking about, but
so questions that, in response, for instance, do you feel confident in your knowledge of local evacuation routes and procedures with a sliding scale, right? People responding either 0 to 10, I feel confident about that, would be a type of question that might be helpful for us. Again, how do you rank your preparedness for a large-scale fire? Do you have a go bag prepared in your house? Questions perhaps that we can use to gauge the community's preparedness. And it's a chance for me to talk about the importance of demographics as well. Identifying who's responding, and the bias comes in because you have people that are interested in fire, so it's going to be very, could be swayed and look like the entire community is paying attention to this, and so you need to have the demographics in their sense. Does that help you? Would you like some more questions, or is that?
no, those are great guidelines. I mean, I'm going to add the first question that you could write down is, does the public know the websites and apps for these alerts? That is huge. The chief has told us that these weather models come up days before. There could be alerts that go out on our phones that says, go to this app, and it's going to tell you, hey, it's coming from this direction, prepare yourself with all the things that you just mentioned. And there's a possibility that you're going to be evacuating from north to south or east to west on Rancho Santa Fe. So these apps are extremely valuable. They're SDG&E, they're Genesis, they're all these apps that will dictate plenty in advance what to do.
How do you get your fire preparedness, like emergency notification? Are you
Exactly.
receiving emergency notifications? Are you
Correct.
dialed in for receiving notifications? Excellent.
And also, the mayor also asked us about earthquake. So this isn't just fire.
It is just fire.
Oh, it is.
Earthquake did come at the meeting, but
You streamlined it to fire.
I expect that we'll get something in our work plan.
Okay.
Related specifically to earthquake. Go ahead.
Well, one issue, and people ask about vulnerable populations, if people are in wheelchairs, dealing with elderly, dealing with very young kids, dealing with large animals and small animals. So those are some of the things. I'm not sure how we ask that to find out from people about what they're concerned, but they may bring up things that aren't in the plan yet, or, like people don't want to go somewhere if they can't take their dog with them, so that they know they can take their dog with them, and then large animal evacuations. But looking at it as we have a city of 60-something thousand people, the highest risk may be Livenhain and a couple of other places, but that's smaller numbers of people, but we have over 60,000 people that are going to be at risk, and how to deal with the whole, it has to look at the whole city.
I'm hearing like special considerations. Like, do you
Right.
feel like you are a citizen that has special considerations and getting information about what their special needs may be?
Yeah,
Is
or
that like-
asking them that
Like, are
way-
you special needs? What are your special needs? What accommodations should we know about in your situation for an evacuation? Like a narrative like that? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if that'll bring those things out, but maybe. I just see how they wordsmith it, but I think
Yeah.
that the issue is it's not just a random population. Is there are people who are not as mobile as others? There are people who drive, there are people who don't drive, there are people who are handicapped, there are people who are blind, so have to look at the whole
So
population.
it's almost like a great demographic
Yeah.
sort of question, like, are you special needs? Or are there special considerations we should know about
Yeah.
in that? Okay.
And then the animals also, that's.
Yeah. My sense is that, and I would hope the city kind of has a pulse of that, but it'd be interesting to see, if it's actually there, and ask the questions, and the data that we get, how it compares to what the city already does know or doesn't know.
I asked the question about the animals, and it was interpreted as only, like horses.
Oh.
It wasn't interpreted as dogs and cats, so I think that needs to be
Yeah,
in there.
let's not forget the birds.
And the birds, yeah, and the fish, yeah.
Vice Chair Dominguez, thank you for your patience.
No problem. Chief Gordon, how many questions do you think might be in this survey?
I think when you're doing any kind of research or surveys, you're going to have 3 to 5 themes of the survey, and then I would say 3 to 5 questions per those themes. So any survey that starts getting above 15 questions, 15 to 20 questions, starts getting pretty long for people to complete. But I would say 3 to 5 themes with 3 to 5 questions each would be appropriate.
Okay, so with that in mind, I think I heard we should probably have a section on evacuations. We should have a section on preparedness. Maybe a section on, I don't know how to phrase this, but maybe like what fire hazards there are in the community, what
home and
people
property-
see as potential fire hazards in the community. When we talk about evacuations, we should have, where are people evacuating to? So I think evacuations, preparedness, known fire hazards might be 3 broad topics that we could try to work with. Do you see anything else that we might be able to?
We got
Another broad topic?
I got some suggestions that I received from, if you'd like to comment, though.
Yeah, so some of the things we, did some brain work over here too, general concerns, some stuff that we might miss that the public might be able to come out and say, hey, I have a concern about this that maybe we haven't even talked about or thought about in here. The communication and emergency alerting, right? How do you get your information? That was brought up earlier already. Evacuation and emergency planning. I think the public already commented on that today. So what are those emergency plans and evacuations? Home and property preparedness, emergency response and fire services, community and neighborhood preparedness, and any other additional feedback was kind of the themes that we talked about to help kind of guide the discussion.
Sounds like Sounds like that's right on point, so.
I'm
So-
I'm happy to work with the fire chief and come back with any other draft, but also if it's any other discussion you want to have about it. Feel free.
I like what Harriet said. I think there's a lot of special considerations for even homeless, elderly, special circumstances. There should be some type of a resource question. Do you know what outreach program for whatever maybe your special circumstances are? It's all about resources, and the more we convolute this survey, the more difficult it's going to be. There could be even a question, do you know how to navigate through our website that's intact, that has all this information?
I like a question, have you accessed our city's website for this information in the past year?
Yeah, it's
Ever.
updated.
Ever, you know what I mean? Like, so that's a really reasonable question.
Yes.
To see if people actually in there, and as well as the app, right? Which I think that's one of the best things I do as a commissioner is tell people about the app. You know?
App is huge.
So great, yeah. That's a great question.
Just looking back at the assignment, ranking the concerns by likelihood and severity, and then coming back with stuff that can be triaged in the budgeting process. I'm wondering if the questions and general background on people's knowledge, et cetera, gets us to the assignment, or maybe it's a more academic question, right? So if what we're really trying to do is raise up the concerns by likelihood and severity and be able to come back with items that would be considered as part of the budgeting process, I'm not sure I understand how this survey question gets us there.
Chair Moore, can I help out with that?
Sure.
The more information we get and the concerns, what we're going to do is bring it back to here. Once we collect all this information, we'll bring it back to the fire department. We'll create a report that shows how we mitigate or take care of the concerns that we do already mitigate and have information for. We'll show you what our gap is, and then we'll show you what we need to close that gap, which would be most likely a budget item. Everything is either a resource or personnel, a program, something like that that could help close those gaps. So I think that's the timeline would be get the information, present it to us, we collect it in, we put it in our blender, come up with a report that shows you how we handle today's operations and take care of certain mitigated matters, and then we'll show you what we need, and then that's when you can bring back a recommendation to council before this budget year, and that's why there's such a tight timeline, because that's coming up here in May, June, before it needs to get approved. So I think that's kind of the direction I think that would be the best for the commission is to come up with these questions, bring them to us. We create the survey for you and the information, QR code link, get it out there, over communicate as much as we can, use the commission to go out to certain events, share the QR code and the link, ask questions yourselves, take notes, bring that all back on the 28th? 31st, sorry. Bring it all back on the 31st. We will have it coalesced and put together for you by the end of that week. I think the 26th or 27th we'll have it. We'll give it to you so that you can digest it over the weekend, come back on that 31st to come up with a presentation back to us of what all the information you got was. We'll have all that in a report. You guys can discuss that. Send us off to, again, come up with our report. We will come back to you, present all of our information, and then you'll gather all that information and take what recommendations you want to give back to the council before the budget.
If that didn't answer your question, I have a follow-up. Did that answer your question, Dan? So the way I understood your question was, we were talking about what outreach services have you reached in the last year? In your question, was that the question specifically you were?
No,
You were
the
concerned- what
the
was the question?
demographics of what people know and how,
Yeah,
it didn't seem very well aligned with what are their big concerns and giving us the data so that we could rank severity and likelihood.
I just answered, actually, knowing who the people are is very important in knowing how to rank those things as severe or not severe. Like, I think they are linked, right? You could completely dismiss this is going to be a random thing, but if everybody that responded to the survey was from the coast, right, and they're not concerned about what's going on in Leavenhagen, then you'd be skewed, right? I think knowing who's responding, right, and so what they're knowledgeable about is important. Yeah? No? Did I sell you? It's okay for us to disagree.
I've lived this issue for the last
Yeah.
5 years, and I'm just skeptical that this process is going to answer Bruce's assignment.
Okay. Did you have a question, Harriet?
Yeah, my question here is how are people, if there's an emergency that people need to be ready to evacuate or to evacuate, how do they need to be notified? I mean, I know this stuff is already existing, but there are people in the recent fires in other parts of California and other places that didn't know, you know, to evacuate or whatever. And I just want to make sure that I don't know how if that something needs to be captured in there, because there's some people that have different ways of, like, not everyone's on an app, not everyone has email. I'm just trying to think if there's something in there, because that I know that's been a big issue.
So like the communication, like
Yeah.
how are you receive your updates on,
Yeah.
how are you alerted?
Yeah.
Right, how are you alerted? Okay. Yep.
How about, I think there were some questions when the Palisades fire broke out about water availability, and then, do we have enough firefighters to get the job done? I think those are questions that will most likely
Like the
hear as
public-
questions
the
from the
public's
public.
perception? The public's
Yeah, that might be
perception?
something that'll go to the mayor to say, do we have systems in place that give us our best chance to have enough water and have enough personnel?
Along those lines, I consider a question.
And
like-
those are budget
like-
issues,
Like
right?
how confident are you in the city's preparedness and staff or fire department for handling,
Right.
you know what I mean, in a scale of like 0 to 10, right? Something like that?
It's part of preparedness,
Yeah,
yes.
the preparedness and hits it, yeah. Go ahead.
Two things. Regarding the survey, we're putting a survey out to find out what people want to know. We might know it, but if you had 10 people that said the same thing, well, the survey from last year is going out the window because you're giving the people what they want to hear. We don't want to be adding more stuff that they don't want to hear, because that's why they're taking the survey. So that's how it's going to get ranked. Everybody said they wanted to know about A and not D and E and F, then it's tailored to A. They're going to tailor it to what the consensus is, what the majority is. If the majority of the people only take the survey from the beach and they don't take it from a Leavenhagen, well, it's a Leavenhagen's loss not to be educated
Right.
in this survey. So it will be tailored to the people that took it at the beach. The second part is with resources and stuff like that, I'm very passionate about this Palisades thing. The chief gave an incredible talk to the audience that our job as firefighters, first responders, police, the military, is life safety. That's it. That's it. There's nothing that could have put that fire out in the Palisades. You could have all the water you could have the oceans, you could have the resources, you could have every man on every house. It just was not going to happen. You might be able to save us a portion of it or done better at it, But when you really break down the life safety component of it, there's 27 people out of a couple 100,000 people. 7 of those were smoke inhalation. The rest were homeless, people that didn't want to evacuate, and elderly. You know, so that's a huge win. So again, and not to offend anybody, but as we started this conversation, it's about us being educated on what the chief has got. He's got all this information. We have like everything that we need right here. Now let's just listen to the public, their number 1 concern, their number 2 concern, their number 3, and that is where this budget's going to be created from. You know, it's who wants to be involved to take the survey, and keep it simple, because I think that we convolute these things times 10. You know, we got to, no disrespect to anybody, we got to dummy it down and keep it very layman's terms, so that we get a clear view of what the citizens want today after the Palisades fire to give to them. So,
My takeaway is, let's not overthink this thing. It's important that we hear from everybody, make sure that the questionnaire is geared towards hearing what's there.
listening.
Maybe identify a gap, but understanding that we have very trained professionals that have been thinking about this, and your feeling is that you'd be surprised if we identify a significant gap that hasn't already been thought about. But then also, just let's not overthink this and keep this simple, would be the takeaway. Thank you. It's great. I'm seeing red lights from everybody. Anybody else want to continue the conversation about the questionnaire? Okay. Let's have a vote on the meeting schedule.
To clarify, Chair, the meeting schedule and the questions you discussed.
That would be fantastic.
Thank you.
Would you like us to read back what questions you have, and
you
if
have
that is the
notes.
final survey? Or would you like to use those questions to maybe direct staff to come up with the survey that make sure they incorporate those questions?
I'll take door number 2.
Okay, that sounds good. So we'll read you back those questions, so what we've taken back. And that way we're all transparent. We know what questions we heard today. If there's anything we missed, let us know. And then if you guys vote to go that direction, we will come back later with a survey with all of the questions that could be sent out to the public.
Are you and I going to deliberate before those, between now and the 17th?
Yes, and we
Okay.
can share, well,
That
I'll
was
let her
my
read the
intent.
questions.
Yeah, that was my intent, right? Is that we're still going to have discussion, we're going to take what we had, and then we're going to distribute out to the commissioners in advance of the meeting on the 17th, what we think the proposed survey is going to look like, and then we're going to vote on it on the 17th of what that's going to be. I think that's much clearer direction than I gave you the first time. Thank you for working with me, I appreciate that. Are you clear on the motion?
Yes, just waiting
Yep.
on the questions.
Yep. Thank you.
All right. Good afternoon, Commissioners. So for those of you I have not met yet, I am Marie Jones-Kirk. I'm the emergency manager for the city. So I believe I've captured most of these questions, but we can go through and make sure that you can correct me. But so one of the first questions was, how do you get your emergency notifications? Is that?
Yep.
Okay. The other one was, and I know this, Commissioners may want to discuss this further, but a question that will cover what we call our access and functional needs, so our seniors, our homeless, kind of what we may call our at-risk populations, large animals, kids, small animals, and I know that there was something tied into that related to outreach resources, so I wasn't sure if there was a question that was actually specific question to that, but I know those were kind of overarching topics.
I think it was tied to, are you available of the services that are available to meet your special needs, right?
Okay.
Is that was my, like how knowledgeable about, the city's support for you and your special needs in the event of a wildfire?
Okay. All right. And then other question was, how do you receive your updates? So I believe that was also maybe tied into the emergency notifications, but I just need clarification on that.
I think that was right. Like, how do you receive your special news alerts? How would you be notified of a catastrophic fire,
Okay.
right?
And then there was a discussion around water availability. So if there was anything, I know that was mentioned, that was, again, kind of discussion around water availability. I don't know if there was a question, but I know one of the things that you had mentioned, Chair Morgan, was how confident are you in the fire department's ability to be able to respond to a wildfire? Is that the question that we would?
Yeah, I like that question.
Okay.
Yeah.
And in that would capture the water availability and then also staffing resources, correct?
I think we keep it general. I mean, I'm a big fan of like the scales, right? 1 to 10, like in that question, like how confident are you in the Encinitas Fire Department to respond to a catastrophic fire? If we're going to get a specific, we could get specific about, do you feel like if there's a threat, what is your concern? Maybe that's a narrative question, right? That's the narrative. Like, what is your chief, lacking? What do you feel is lacking in our response to a wildfire? In protection of your, happy to work with you guys, and your life or property, right? No, you don't like that one? Yeah, how would you rephrase it? Or would you just strike it?
I'd throw it out.
Okay.
You're rating the fire department. You're rating the fire department, the zone, the mutual aid, and everything that's in place. You're questioning. That's like you're questioning the authority of everybody. I mean, that's
I'm asking their opinion of it, though.
Yeah.
And I think that's important to know.
You're asking the opinion of the public to.
And that's what we're being asked, right? I mean, it's hunky-dory if we find out that, like, everybody loves what the fire department's doing and we're great.
Yeah.
And it gives a guidance of, like, you get typical responses from people that are 10s. I love the fire department, and typical responses from people that are like your 3s, right? So
Yeah, I would be thinking maybe streamline it as like what could be done better regarding our first responders, or
it's a great narrative.
something along that line instead of a 1 to 10. I mean, I hate to say it, but the stereotype is we love firefighters. I mean, you read Encinitas News and it's like, oh, there's constantly praise. I would just say, what would you feel they could do better? Yeah. Or what improvement or something a little bit, like a concern.
Yeah, and the bit of prep work that I did and the chief counsel that I got was you should only be asking questions that have an actionable result.
Exactly.
Was the key, was sort of the metric of that. So can we just keep it with the question, but then and deliberate more on that? So the question being, how, confident are you in the Encinitas Fire Department to respond to a catastrophic wildfire? But then also, we had the narrative that you liked, which was, do you have the resources available? What was the narrative that you had?
Basically, do you feel that, our provided fire service has the resources or the capability of mitigating whatever the situations may occur, on large scale or small scale?
We said that pretty quick. I'm going to not talk until you've stopped writing.
I was going to say, I might need for you to repeat that, please, Commissioner.
My answer is basically, do you feel that the fire service has the ability, large scale or small scale, to basically mitigate these incidents? The incidents that we respond regarding this topic, any topic. And if they don't, I mean, it's still a survey, but if they want to put something of their concern in regarding that, maybe they would.
Would there be a space that they could put narrative
Yeah.
as well?
Yep.
Yeah, we can add in narrative style answers to the survey.
I think maybe it would be appropriate to include the sheriff's department's preparedness as well on with that question, because they have such a vital role in making sure that the roads keep moving when there's evacuations, and that they're able to respond to everywhere, Levenheim down to the Neptune, to advise people and, help people move along,
Yeah, to kind of rephrase that, that's a great way to put it, is our resources. So you're not like pinning it on fire. You're not pinning on sheriffs. You're not specifically looking at animal control. You might even have military service coming if it was that crazy. So resources are our city's internal resources. All entities.
I mean, it's really, we're talking about fire here, right? I think that mentioning the two departments is important in the question.
We can include the departments.
But I appreciate that comment about, because there's many other resources.
Yeah,
out
and there, like, as Harriet stated, I heard in that meeting a lot, what about my animals? What about my animals? What about, it wasn't about A or B, it was like, what, well,
the animal controls as
yeah,
well.
it's the priorities that people put in an incident like that is, might not be yours, might not be mine, but might be hers. Might be her elderly family that can't get out of their house. That might be a resource that she's only concerned with.
So a narrative would be good for that. You're in the middle of answering of questions. You want to pick up where you were at?
And I want to, just for the discussion on the last question is, I want to make sure that I've captured this, is the question being, do you feel the city, I think we moved it from fire department, broadened it to city, has the resources, I think we changed ability to resources, to respond to large or small scale, or to mitigate the incidents? And I
Catastrophic
apologize,
fires.
I was capturing a lot of, I think, discussion there, but I just want to make sure we're focusing in on city resources. So does the city have the resources to be able to respond to large or small incidents? Is that correct?
I think we'd like to have fire department and Encinitas and the sheriff called out instead of
Okay.
saying resources.
Chief, can we get your take on it?
Yeah, if you go back to the city council meeting where Mayor Ehlers had the council-initiated item, Councilmember O'Hara did ask for law enforcement to be involved with this, and that was part of their motion. So any questions we're coming here is going to also have a law enforcement side to it as well. So as regard to the question about resources, I think we can wordsmith a question that is going to basically ask, is the Encinitas Fire Department and the Sheriff's Department prepared for any hazard, right? All hazards, that's what we do. So we'll get the take of the community and how well they feel that we're prepared to respond. And they could, through narrative, ask questions about resources, evacuation plans. They could go down a rabbit hole with that, and we'll still be able to collect that information and synthesize it into a report back to you.
Wonder how that might show up, something that Dan talked about a long time ago about the proposed fire station in Levenheim. And again, going back to, do we have the resources here to, effectively deal with a fire out there? I think we're going to see some of that come back from Levenheim when it comes to that question. So it might be something you'll be thinking about when you craft the question.
I will take this opportunity a little bit for the fire department to, we know what our gaps are as well, right? So while the public is going to be giving information, we're still going to give you a report that we know where there's a gap as well. We're not going to just say, hey, it's just the public. We know where our gaps are. We know where our resource needs are in our fire stations, and we'll present that to you as well with that final report. We'll take into the community's information, and we'll be able to correlate and connect and make sure that you get a comprehensive report that shows you how we respond, what our resources are like, and how again, we mitigate the concerns of today, where our gaps are, and what we need to close that gap. So
So there's, looking at the specific assignment, risk the concerns, rate the concerns, et cetera, I would like to see a series of questions that go directly at the assignment. So how concerned are you about a Santa Ana-driven wildfire emanating east of the 15? And what are your concerns in that scenario? Is it evacuation traffic coming from Rancho Santa Fe and clogging up our Leavenhagen streets? Is it, whatever we want to do in that theme? But that's a big type of concern that I think that we're trying to address here. And a similar one would be, what if we didn't get all that notice from the fire burning from east of the 15? What if it started east of Escondido and was on us a lot faster? How would that change your concerns? And how big of a risk is that to you? And how likely do we think that kind of a scenario is? So that kind of a question, I think, that really drills right at the heart of the question. And what is it that worries you about that? Is it your family's life? Is it your house being there when you get back?
So in any survey, there's a lot of studies about creating surveys that are biased by the question itself, right? So if we are so direct in the questions that we're asking, we're going to be almost giving them what their opinion and concern is to put back on the paper. What we're going to try to do is create a survey that pulls out what the true concerns are of the public. So while we might be able to say a question about, are you afraid of a large conflagration coming from the east to the west, and are you worried about evacuations, stuff like that, we can be a little bit vague and still, I think, get down to what you're asking. But I don't want to be so specific to where we're actually answering the questions for them. That does happen in surveys sometimes. So we're going to try to make this as scientific as possible.
I would caution against trying to be too clever with the survey, right? Our assignment was to find out what the public was concerned about and to rank them. If we're asking the public what they're concerned about, I think we're doing the assignment.
Harriet?
Yeah, I just have a process question.
Okay.
If whatever we have now.
You need to have your microphone on.
I'm sorry.
Thank you,
If we
Molly.
vote on this, does that mean the meeting ends, or can there be discussion? What I was interested in is discussion about how this buddy thing of 2 and 2, what do we do after the meeting as separate people? Can we talk about that after this vote, or is that has to be discussed now?
I would think so, but thinking it, I'm now concerned that I can't do it. So can I still give her some direction on the ad hoc committee and how she can liaise with her partner after we?
Yeah, next steps for us as small groups after this meeting ends. I'm just afraid we'll vote and then it's like, we're gone, and I wanted that answered.
It's a reasonable concern based on the way the
Yeah.
night's gone.
Yeah.
And our chief person that says we can't do it's not here. So I'm going to assume yes. Happy to give you direction on, you just, in order to, would you like to give any response to that, chief? Or whoever's best?
From the discussion, it was determined that I would send out the phone list. And I could also send out with that phone list what the chair had come up with for Buddy, and then you would be able to contact that person directly. That,
Okay, phone and email? Okay. And it's open-ended, what we would talk about? Okay, but I mean, it's towards this, but open-ended, where and what? Okay. That's it.
You need to have your microphone on when you talk so they can hear you.
All right, I just wanted to know what it is, if we have that the buddies can talk, then what is it that we're supposed to talk about? And if it is this, or it's directed towards specific activities that each buddy pair should be doing?
Conversations in this should be directed to this, right? To this, fulfilling the mayor's ask of us is what
Okay.
you guys should talk about.
Okay,
Whatever you want to talk in that framework. But
Okay.
that's what it should be
Okay,
about.
okay.
Do we have any more questions that you put together?
I did have a
Yeah.
couple more on that same general line of thing. So one of the questions and the concerns would be the density of fire hydrants and access. So this is related to the Station 6 question and whatnot. And I believe I heard tales of woe from the chief having to clean up 800 feet of line, times two maybe, in some firefighting. But the water density issue, that goes sort of to the infrastructure and some of the Palisades-related stuff that's been a talking point. And it is an area of concern in my neighborhood, at least.
What would a question look like? Or actually, we'll just ask the staff to come up with a question that will
Do you
address
know
that
where the
need.
nearest fire hydrant to your house is?
Fine.
We'll make sure those kind of questions are added into the survey.
Thank you, Dan.
Did- Our emergency
We're trying
planner,
to get her to go through the questions
Right.
that we've had. We're still going to have time to talk. I'll ask that we just go through the questions we have. If you have some questions, there'll be time at the end, but let's see what it looks like as things go. Are you prepared to resume questions that you think we've prepared for you?
So 2 additional questions are how concerned, and I know Chief spoke to this, but how concerned are you about a red flag event east of I-15? And Commissioner Vaughn, did I,
Yeah, we had, in those Weber and Fitch reports, there were a couple of scenarios that were specifically looked at. And it goes to sort of the notice you'd have for evacuation warning, right? If something's coming from east of the 15, you've got plenty of time to orderly evacuate people and get the big animals down to the fairgrounds and whatever, right? But if something pops up in Harmony Grove, it's on us before you have time to do any of that.
okay, I think I've captured that. And then the last question is, do you know where the nearest fire hydrant is to your house?
Or the distance, I guess, is really the question.
So you know where it's at. What do you do with it?
I think that the question is, if you're, 1,000 feet from a fire hydrant to your house, it affects the ability to put out fires in front-following scenarios and stuff, right?
Commissioner Vaughn, well, whether that's a concern from the public or not, I mean, we'll ask a question to that effect, but we will have that kind of information back for you on our report anyway.
We're still making our way through questions, everybody.
That's it on the questions.
That's it?
I had
Okay.
one addition. Somehow, if we can phrase something about fire hazards. I don't know. I could give an example, but maybe it might be too. But like down on the 101, there's all these abandoned buildings now. They're like Keno's is probably like a tinderbox. That place is all wood, right? And it's abandoned now. But I think we should gauge to see the public's feeling on how the city mitigates fire hazards of some kind. Does that make sense?
We could ask a question that's maybe open-ended about what other fire hazards do they see in the city, and then they can maybe list what they feel we need to be looking at.
Okay.
One of the questions that I had asked to be on that survey was, do you know how to navigate through the city's website to find out the information that, for this topic?
And then did we pick up, are they knowledgeable of the evacuation plans for Encinitas, as we heard today? In the demographics, we should definitely have a call out for the districts that they're in. And this, thank you for the reminder, just as was called out, you know, the congestion for evacuation, so, yep.
Yeah, demographics will definitely be in there. We need to make sure that we're keeping it to our citizens, answering these questions, and then knowing what districts they're from
Yeah.
is important.
In my reading, I became finally knowledgeable, like, we're incorporating Del Mar and Solana Beach, correct? Or no, is it specifically just?
No,
It's just
specifically
Encinitas, right?
Encinitas, correct.
Even though we have the authority over them? Okay,
Correct, yeah, we're
makes
just.
sense.
Yep.
Yep. It's on them to figure it out.
Can we have districts and communities? Because like District 4 includes Livenhain, but there's a lot of District 4 that isn't a Livenhain, and I think it would be more useful if there's a way to incorporate both, that people respond about community and district, because people think differently.
Yeah, we can figure out a way to incorporate that, maybe, and we'll think through it. This is just an initial thought, but a district with maybe what street you live on, not your address, but the street itself. That way have some privacy and anonymity to the survey itself. But yeah, we can try to narrow it down a little bit more.
I believe we've had a question about communication, but at the risk of breaking protocol, Molly, though, but is that kind of the question there that we've got about communication, just assessing everybody's way that they do receive communications about fires?
Yes.
Yeah, thanks. I thought I got it. Yeah, thanks. I am almost ready to entertain.
Just a
Okay.
couple more while we're here.
Okay, great.
Chief, do you have a plan in how this survey gets to the prioritization of sort of the Fitch-reported technology for streetlight switchings and all the learnings from the guy running out of Paradise, turning the green lights on his way out of town, saving lives?
I mean, those kind of recommendations will come from you, or when we give you what our gaps are, that would be part of the recommendations or gap solution that we have to give to you. If we have concerns about slow evacuations or mobility issues, congested traffic, stuff like that, then that would be a gap closer, if you will, that we could recommend.
And so is there a question in the survey that's going to tee that up?
I mean, probably not. And it's up to you if you want to add that exact question in, but I don't know if how many people would actually understand what that is if we called it out.
A concern about evacuation in the event of one of these major, right? Just
Yeah.
your ability to get out of town in a timely and safe manner.
Right. I mean, that'll be one of the questions in there is how do you feel if you were being evacuated, could you do it in a timely manner, right? There's questions that we can lead to that, but I don't know about specific to technology of lights that we would ask the public.
Yeah, no, holistically, I'm just trying to
Okay.
make sure that we're able to get to where the mayor is asking us to get to at the end of this.
Yep.
Yeah, and along those lines, making sure we're asking actionable questions. And this thing I would like to see happen is all ideas, draft, and questions. We have a bolus of them, and then there's going to be a triage, because I think there's a consensus of just understanding we do have to keep this simple and not overthink it, right? And so in order for it to be effective on everything. I'd like to think we're done with the conversation here. Okay.
You want me to try a motion?
And we're there, or did I actually mess up and get a
No,
second?
we have a motion and a second.
Yeah,
What is the motion?
yep.
The motion was to adopt the meeting schedule that you discussed, as well as the questions that have been proposed to staff.
So friendly amendment to direct staff to draft
Perfect.
content for our next meeting based on the general themes and discussion that we've had, as well as whatever your buddy system marching orders were, and to get those things out.
How'd you feel about that?
It will be well-defined once I listen to it back in the recording.
Let's vote.
And motion is passed.
Okay. See what my screen looks like.
Chair Morton, if I could add one thing, just as a matter of logistics, I guess. I'd like to inform everyone that Commissioner Robin Sales has resigned from the Public Health and Safety Commission.
Okay.
And so there'll be an open seat right now.
Excellent. Is there a sense on how fast they move on that and what that looks like?
No, that'd be up to the city council.
Yeah, generally there'll be weeks where they'll accept applications and then there'll be a thing, so we'll probably definitely, once this is all done, so thank you for the announcement. Thank you, everyone, for your patience. We'll try to do better next time, but I think we did some pretty good work at the end of the day. Have a great night.